Hi there. I'm going to try and go through the solo to Live Forever by Oasis today. I've already played through and hopefully it's nice and close so you can see me play it through in time with the track. And I've also done a couple of videos just linking the scales that I'm going to use basically, or I should say he uses in this solo. And I'm going to use vicariously. So basically we start on the 12th fret D string, which is a D note, and I'm going to play that with my first finger, my index finger. Okay, that's our first note there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer on to 14. Okay, so it's two notes with one pick. So all you do with the hammer on, if you're not very experienced with them, is you just hammer your finger down with one kind of pick. Okay, and then I'm going to play the 12th fret then on the G string. And I'm going to put a bit of vibrato on that. Again, if you're not very experienced with vibrato, it's basically just lots of small bends. We're not going to go too quickly, you do something. It's not that kind of thing, you know, it's quite slow and careful. And I'm actually barring both of those with my first finger. So what I'm doing there is I'm playing two separate notes on that 12th fret so that I can get the vibrato on properly. Okay, so that's the first bit. Really, really simple first lick. I don't know why it's taken me over a minute to explain it. So the second bit is a much more difficult bit, and it's a really, really cool lick that you see a lot in blues music and stuff like that, and I'm sure that's where he heard it. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to do a bend where we bend up, down, and then we're going to pull off. Okay, so it's going to be 14 on the G string, and the other note we're going to play is 12, also on the G string. We're going to aim to get this A note, this 14th fret, up to the 16th fret, the B note. That's the note we're aiming for. Okay, so it's one pick and it's going to be all of those notes. It's not particularly fast bend either. None of this is particularly fast. Obviously you can do more that kind of thing, but it's really not that. It's a much slower bend. Just a little bit on technique for bends. I've got my thumb over the top. You'll see it over there for quite a lot of what I do. But particularly for bends, you want to get that. And you usually want to get the knuckle, this bit here, on the bottom of the guitar just to help with the bend. So it's not all fingers, it's also moving your arm up a little bit. This is a relatively small bend, so it's not a big problem. And I'm not doing a lot of them in a relatively short solo, but just that's the best technique. And I also use my first finger as like a guide finger just to deaden other strings. Otherwise you can get a situation where you make more noise. You hear that bit of noise there, that's what you're trying to avoid. Okay, so once you've gone up, down, you've pulled off to 12, we're then going to play 14 on the D string. Okay, and then we're going to do another hammer on, but this time it's going to be G string 12 to 14. Now, I'm going to put a bit of vibrato on that. Don't feel like you have to, but most notes that I land on, we're going to put some vibrato on. Okay? That's kind of it at a kind of normal speed. Slower it would be. It's weird getting my fingers out of the way, sorted there, so. Hopefully you can see that. I'm trying to do it with my middle finger out the way a bit more. But it wants to get involved. Because normally you'd obviously use that to help with the bend. Okay, now that's going to take a little bit more getting used to, but once you've got used to that, the next lick is then super simple because it's the same thing and you just add on an extra E note, which is 14th fret on the D string. You just put that in at the end, so you end up with... That's it. Now I'm actually taking my finger off there and doing that kind of thing, but you can roll it up as well. That works out equally as well. But I just do that naturally, and that's what feels comfortable to me. Usually when I'm doing that, I'm more usually moving down the strings. I do it sometimes going up, but most of the time that's just how I like that to sound. It's quite I clip that note quite a lot, that hammer-on note. So And then, yeah, so those are the first 3 licks. So I'm going to try and play those through without fluffing it, so we'll see how it goes, and then we'll move on from there. So it's... So I'm going to try and do it super slowly. I'm not really doing it with a metronome or anything. I'm doing it kind of relatively free speed. So I'm just going to try and do it slower, so you can, if you need to, you can play along with it going slower. See how this goes. Okay, you get the idea basically. Yeah, if you listen to me doing the track, it'll all sound a bit better over the chords. Okay, so then the next bit, we're going to do still in this same position, which is first position minor pentatonic. I'm going to now do a hammer-on double stop. Double stop is just the name for when we play 2 strings at the same time. I'm going to play the D string on the 12th fret, and I'm going to play the G string on the 12th fret, and I'm going to do them both with my first finger, so it's a bar. And then I'm going to hammer on to the 14th fret on the D string, not the G string. That's going to stay on 12. It's just going to be that one string, the D string, I'm going to hammer onto, so you get this noise. Okay, it's not that. It's then it's just going to. Then I'm just going to play 12. Okay, and that's all that bit is. That's kind of Hendrixy. That's what I always think of lots of double stops, and you get that. It's faux Hendrix really, but it sounds really cool, and it works really, really nicely. And I'm going to do a little bit of moving of my guitar. Hopefully it won't get too... The problem with a white guitar in a very dark room is when you have... It reflects very badly on the light you do have. I'm now going to... This is 7th fret, okay? And what I'm going to do, I'm now in position 4 minor pentatonic, and I'm going to do a similar thing here with double stops. So I'm going to double stops on the D string and the G string 7th fret. I'm going to hammer onto the D string 9th fret, not the G string again, just the D string. I'm going to do that twice in a row. And then I'm going to do the double stop at both at 7s. So it's not that, because that was rubbish. Like that. Okay, so it's... Okay, and that's that little bit, and that goes straight into the next lick, which is a very strange one, because what he does is he plays some dead notes, then he plays 3 opens. Now I'm going to do this as a double stop on the if I move my hand again, on the G string and the B string. That's what I'm going to be picking, and I'm also going to use these as my dead notes. In terms of the dead notes, I'm just going to hold here because I'm going to slide into there. That's the next note that I'm going to do. So I'm just going to dead note here, so I'm in position. It doesn't make a particularly huge difference to the noise, particularly because it's going to be relatively fast. I'm just going to literally resting my fingers on the string. I'm not pushing down at all. If I push down, it sounds like that. We don't want that. We just want... Now, if you've got particularly light strings, in fact, I do, to be honest, but if you're not used to it, you will push down a little bit and you'll get a worse noise. You just literally rest your fingers on the strings. And what I'm going to do with my right hand, a bit more of this, if only I could work out how to use cameras properly. Right, so what I'm going to do here is it's going to be just down, up, down, up, down. Okay, so it's 5 notes in total. The first 2 are going to be dead notes, and then it's going to be 3 with open. But the right hand is continuous, okay? So the dead notes are just resting there, and all I do is just take my hand away when I do the open ones. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to do down, up, dead, and then down, up, down. And that's all that bit is. So if I do it a little bit faster, you can see my right hand. And that's closer to full speed. Okay? That's all I'm doing there. It's one of those ones, on its own it sounds a bit weird, but it does work quite well in the song. So if you come out of the... that kind of thing, okay? Okay, I suppose I am actually, I start there just because that's where my hand is. And then my hand starts to move as I'm doing those open notes. It's not something I've really thought about before, but I am continually moving my hand closer to where I need to be for the next lick. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the first half of the solo. So we're going to start with a slide into 12. Now, it's one of those ones where it doesn't matter particularly where you slide from. I'm going to slide from 10, but you could slide from 11. It would be fine. You could slide from 9. It's because it's a relatively fast slide. It doesn't particularly matter. Really just where your hand is naturally. Usually I find my hand here, a 2-fret slide. And then I'm going to do hammer-on the D string 12 to 14, and then the G string 12 to 14. So more of these hammer-ons. That's all it is. And then we're going to do one of the licks we've done before, where we bend up, down, pull off to 12, and then we're going to play 14 on the D string, hammer on, and then we're going to play 14 on the D string again. So it's the second variation of these. Again, I'm going to vibrato at the end there because it sounds cool, and that's the most important thing. So this small section is... Okay, and then this section ends with some more of these double stops. Okay, so in total that is going to be... The first bit's exactly the same as we did it before, where we start with the double stops on 12, we hammer on to 14 on the D string, and then we play the double stop again. So it's... The second bit's slightly different, where we're going to do the hammer on, but then we're going to leave it down and strum that, which should now be 14 on the D and 12 on the G. And then we're going to then play the double stop on 12. So we end up with... like that, okay? So now I'm going to try and play through relatively slowly. I'm going to try and play through this first half of the solo, because that's halfway through. That's basically playing over the verse chords, okay? So, let's see how well I can do this. 2, 3... Okay, that's not too bad. I've played it better, but hopefully that'll give you an idea of how it goes. And obviously, in my other video is me playing it a bit faster. So I'm going to try and just keep going. Hopefully it won't be too long a video. And yeah, just so that you can have it all in one place for the whole solo. So we're going to move on from here. We've just done these double stops. I'm going to slide into 17 with my third finger. Not like that, because that was terrible. Like that. So that's 17. That's B string, I should say. Let's try and get it right, Paul. Come on. That sounds better. So it doesn't matter where you slide from. I'm coming from 14 because that's where my finger's going to be. Okay? Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to play this 8 times, and I'm going to vibrato constantly. Okay, so I'm going relatively fast with my vibrato there, just because that's the kind of feel he does at this point. It's not that, it's a bit faster. And this second half of the solo is basically, it's a 4-bar section followed by almost identically repeated 4-bar section, okay? So it sounds a lot more difficult than it is, because now we're going to have the first kind of more tricky lick. It's bad English, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's the lick itself. I'm doing this almost exclusively with 1 and 3, which is index and ring finger. I'm just going to use my middle finger for that 16 there. So I'm going to start by playing on the B string 17 and pulling off to 15. Then I'm going to play 16 on the G string with my middle finger, and then I'm going to play 15 again on the B string with my first finger. And then I'm going to move to this position where this is now G string 16 and 14. I'm going to do pull off 16 to 14 twice. Okay? In terms of picking, it's not particularly fast, so I often pick most of this down actually, which I don't usually do, but for this one it doesn't matter and I like the way it sounds. I actually pick that note with an up and that note with a down, but then this is usually 2 downs. Okay? Then I'm going to play 12 on the G string, and then I'm going to do a final pull off 14 to 12, and then I'm going to play 14 on the D, 12 on the G. Okay, so pull off 17 to 15, 16 on the G, back to 15 on the B, 2 pull-offs on this G string, 16 to 14, 12 on the G, pull off again, 14 on the D, 12 on the G, okay? I'm going to move my hand so hopefully you can see where I'm picking. Manual zoom. Just realised I picked it differently both times. Let's try that again. So I'm picking those two both down for no other reason than I like the way it sounds. And I didn't the first time just to confuse myself. Okay, so what we're going to do after that is a very similar lick, and this is the one whenever I teach this people forget this lick. So we're going to do a pull off, 14 to 12 on the G string. Then I'm going to bend the 14th fret on the G string up to 16 again. I'm going to kill it at the top there so it doesn't come back down again. It's just a... And I kill that with my right hand, like that. I'm exaggerating a little bit. I wouldn't usually do that hard, but just so you can see my hand move, because it's not very easy to show without multiple cameras, which I don't have. And then I'm going to play 14 on the G string. Okay, so you bend up, kill it, then play 14 on the G string. Then I'm going to pick... Okay, you might be able to see by this slight shadow there that I'm alternate picking that. So it's 12 on the G, 14 on the G, back to 12, and then I end on 14 on the D. Okay, so that bit would be pull off, bend, 14 on the G, and then we've got more hammer-ons. This is a lick that later on we're going to do 3 times in a row, but we're only going to do it once here. It's a hammer-on on the A string. Excitingly, we're moving all the way up to the A string, 12 to 14, then the D string 12 to 14, and then the G string 12. Okay, it's not particularly fast. It's more. Okay, and then we're then going to do a bend on 14 on the G string. Then we're going to do also on the G string a pull off 14 to 12, and then we're going to play 14 on the D followed by 12. So there's a lot of stuff there, so if I play through, if I do the right note, that helps. So we end on that G string 12th fret. And then we've got a very short lick before we segue back into almost an identical 4-bar section. And we're going to bend the G string on the 14th fret again, up to the 16th fret. Then we're going to play, I'm going to use my pinky for this, 15 on the B string, and then I'm going to play 12 on the E string. Now, it doesn't necessarily say that I'm going to hold the bend, but I'm going to, just partially because it sounds cool, and partially because it's time-wise. Like that, okay? So it's bend 14, pinky on 15 on the B, and then 12 on the E. Now, so it's almost a repeated section. We're going to do 17s again. I'm actually going to do 9 this time, not 8. I'm going to do 4 normally. Then I'm going to add in an extra one here. So it's 4 for the first half of the bar, and then 5. And the extra one I add in is going to be an up pick. So it's... That's just the way I think of it. Throwing the extra up pick and it will be perfectly in time. It just works out. And I'm sure that's all he did at the time. Then the same lick as before, this long lick. Okay? Then we've got the next lick. So yeah, just go back and if you've already learnt those, if you've got this far, then just do them again. And then we've got this lick 3 times in a row. Those 3, as you can hear, are exactly the same as before. We're just extending that bit. So we've got... And then we've got one more lick to do, the final lick. It's almost the same as the one we did at the end of the first kind of 4-bar section. It's bend 14th up to 16. We're now going to throw in an extra 14 on the G string. This is all on the G string, sorry. And then all I'm going to do from there is pull off again, 14 to 12. Then 14 on the D string, 12 on the G. Like that, and that's the end lick. So yeah, that's basically the whole thing. It's taken me 20 minutes to get through this, so I'm going to try and play through the whole thing again a bit slower just so you can hear it. Yeah, and hopefully that'll help you to learn it. Right, here we go. There you go. Good luck. Enjoy.